it wouldn't be me recording a video without fucking up the audio first thing. But hi, I'm back. Maybe, I don't really know at this point. And I'm here with a One Piece chapters review. Last time we were here, we did 1079. I think it was 1074 to 1079. And now we're going to be doing 1080 until I'm up to date, which I think is 1080 to 1084. If you hear a shit ton of stuff in the background, that is because it is summer-ish in Ohio, and people love to be outside, which I think is going to be desperately ruining my audio for a while. But it's okay. We'll get through it. I'm not going to try to make some long-winded excuse as to why I haven't made videos. It's just been work. Work is hectic. That's it. And I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently editing-wise. I'm going to be recording this section and the first chapter review in one go, or maybe with a pause in between so I can get a refresher on the chapter. And then I'm going to cut the audio. I'm going to read the next chapter, record my thoughts on that, cut the audio, save it as a different file and everything. I'm going to do that for each chapter so that I have a very visible mark of when each chapter ends in Premiere. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to make visuals for each chapter in Photoshop, OBS, or whatever. Or in Premiere. I don't even know. But yeah, that's the point. That's the idea that I'm going for. And it's just going to kind of help me streamline this process a little bit more. Because it sucks when I have an hour-long video that I have to go in and manually find when I start talking about a certain chapter. So, it's not going to be fun for me. It's going to be a little bit easier doing it this way. And it shouldn't really affect the viewing experience that much. So, without further ado, I have to destroy my workstation so that I can talk about Chapter 1080 of One Piece. 1080, the legendary hero. And we continue our cover requests from viewers. And we immediately start on Hachinoso. And we basically find out, because this is what the series has become, me summarizing, Kobe is on Hachinoso. We knew that. He'd been captured by the Blackbeard Pirates. And he has a 5-star bounty, which now we find out each star is worth a chest of booty, or gold. So he's worth about 500 million berry, whatever. For comparison, I am pretty sure that was Ace's bounty before time skip, but Ace had a devil fruit and the government was trying to up his bounty, trying to give him a nice regulated bounty for him being that dangerous, as dangerous as he was, and being the son of Goldie Roger, but they couldn't obviously publicize that for a little bit. So I think Kobe being about that area by the pirate standard make a little bit more sense. And this brings into question something that I've seen on a lot of social medias for One Piece, is for a series that is so based around bounties as our power scaling system, we don't have any bounty hunters. But the marine bounty system that we now see with Cross Guild makes a little bit more sense, because obviously pirates are going to be going out of their way to collect bounties. That's just possibly a safer way of doing it. Because obviously Marines can't get bounties because it's their job, but bounty hunters do. We've seen 3 bounty hunters in the entire series, and that's Zoro and the 2 brothers that he was friends with at the beginning of the series, Johnny and Yusaku. So the bounty system for the Marines make a little bit more sense. We find out that Kobe has escaped wherever he was in Hachinoso, and he is protecting the other Marines that were captured. And we find out that one, Shiryu of the Rain, who we met way back in Impel Down, ate the clear fruit. The corrupt king Avaldo Pizarro has eaten the island fruit, and heavy drinker Vasco Shot has eaten the glug fruit, and the colossal battleship Sanjan Wolf has become a big fruit and became a gigantification man, which fits because he's always just been a kind of big guy. So the question is, why these fruits in particular? Like, obviously, most of them make sense. Like Shiryu for invisibility, it makes sense. He's a swordsman. But we will get to see eventually, I think, how each of these, they're not the calamities, they're just commanders, right? How each of these guys fight with their devil fruit, and it's gonna be cool because we have a lot of diverse powers, which is what we kind of always do. But we also get a little bit of explanation that they have just recently fixed up the damage from the Rocky Port incident caused by Sanjan Wolf. Meaning that the battle that Kobe is being labeled the hero of was obviously against the Blackbeard Pirates. I think we already knew that. But that means that Sanjan Wolf was there, meaning it wasn't just like Blackbeard and like a few scrappers. It was probably his full fleet. But we cut back to Kobe and we see that he's not really trying to escape. He's just buying enough time for the other pirates to set sail. And we find out through a flashback, what being a member of Sword entails. According to Kuzan, literally quoting him from the TCB scans, he's already given up his Marine code. Sword members are Marines who are no longer recognized on paper. Everyone in Sword has officially resigned their commission. That allows them to ignore certain command protocols. For example, they can fight an emperor like you without authorization. And the Navy can always disavow their actions and cut them loose at any time. So Blackbeard's plan is to use Kobe as a bargaining chip to get Hachinoso recognized as an official kingdom, and he can become the king. And this feels like a fake goal or fake dream, because Blackbeard straight up says don't shit on a man's dream. But Kobe says that the Marines are never going to come for him. He went off on his own, and he's a member of Sword, which Kuzan backs up. He has no bargaining power. But Blackbeard straight up points out they might not come for you because you're a Marine, but the government would not let you die given that you are the hero of the Rocky Port incident. You are the new hero of the Marines, which I'm going to come back to that at the end of the chapter. So worst case scenario, they kill Kobe and the government has a little egg on its face. So, yeah, best case scenario, Blackbeard gets his own kingdom out of it, and Kobe probably ends up getting killed anyway. Well, no, that wouldn't work because they wouldn't give him the kingdom if Kobe ends up dying. So, yeah, whatever. But we see that Kobe just keeps running, and he has teamed up with Perona when she made him the offer that she'll let him out if he frees Moria. So he's running to try to find Moria, and he just keeps thinking the Marines aren't going to come. But then we see there are a squad of Marines at the port, and they are fighting real good. And we get introduced to some more Marines, like some bigger names, but not bigger names as in like Garp, Sengoku, Suryu, or however you say her name. We're talking new gen. And those guys are Kojaku, who ate the Whip fruit, which really reminds me of the Fence fruit. But she reminds me of Do-X or Dose or Triple or Double S, Super S from One Punch with the whip and her like seemingly very dominant personality. And all the Blackbeard pirates and everyone on Hachinoso has Kobe surrounded in the town circle, and they're all about to shoot, but then they all shoot flowers. And we find out that the girl from a few chapters back, Hibari, was able to use flower rounds, which makes me think that she has a devil fruit. I don't remember exactly. But then we also see another member of the Marines that are here. His name is Prince Gruss, and he is a clay man who ate the squelch fruit, which makes me think that he has the ability to make, like, he creates a tiny little, I guess puppet would be the right word to say, or a golem that he can control. So I'm thinking his thing is being able to create different bodies that he can control, which would be really cool if that is his power. But the buildings around them have moved around, I'm going to assume thanks to Gruss's ability. And then we get, I think what everyone was talking about when this chapter came out, Garp. And Garp is where I want to put the majority of my discussion for this chapter. When Garp is in midair because his boat goes flying and he's talking of a big storm, and he says on his second double page spread, "You should have thought twice before you kidnapped Kobe. He's the future of the Marines. Not to mention, he's also my irreplaceable protege." Which, this is what I want to talk about. The Kobe being labeled the new hero of the Marines, and Garp referring to him as his precious protege, and saying you shouldn't have kidnapped him. I feel like this is heavily, I could be pulling something out of my ass here. It's mirroring Shanks and Luffy, but to a, I guess, more loyal degree. Shanks and Luffy had this disconnected relationship. Luffy knew Shanks when he was a kid. Shanks gave him the hat, which is the reason why Luffy became a pirate when he grew up. Garp and Kobe are directly like that. Like, there's no years later. Garp and Kobe are mentor and mentee. And it seems like Garp is trying to transition Kobe to being the new Garp. I guess a better way that I could phrase this is Whitebeard and Ace. Whitebeard had full intention of saving Ace at Marineford and appointing him the new quote-unquote king of the pirates, which was gonna work if Ace would have survived, but it feels like that's what Garp is trying to do with Kobe. This is just my very long-winded way of saying I feel like Garp he already quote-unquote retired, but he's came out to help Kobe, or to save Kobe, so him going out of his way to do that, I feel like it's going to be his last bastion in the Marines, being like, hey, this is your new Marine. This is your new Marine hero. He's better than me. He's younger. He's stronger. That's it. But also, he nukes the entire island, like the town center, with a galaxy fist, which translator note says, it reads as galaxy impact, but the kana reads as galaxy impact, but the kanji reads as fist bone impact. So some kind of impact, which galaxy fist impact, it's whatever. Cool though, right? It is. But yeah, I liked this chapter. As it is the first of the 5 chapters I have to review, each of the chapters I have to review have nothing to do with Egghead, I believe. I could be wrong. But they are all their own separate thing, which is going to be so fucking fun. But also, during Garp's attack, he lets off an explosion of Conqueror's Haki, seemingly. I don't know if we knew if he had Conqueror's Haki, or not. Either way, that's just something I noticed. I'm sure other people did way faster and way sooner than I did. So, yeah, that is my review for this chapter of One Piece. I'll be back literally in like a second with the new chapter. Funny note that I want to make though is Garp is going a very far out of his way to save Kobe when he did not do this to save him. To save Ace, sorry. So like, I think this is Garp also kind of atoning for that. He already let his grandson die. He's not about to let his protege die. I'll be back with 1081. Starting off immediately into 1081, we see that Garp's ship is basically crash landing, and all the pirates are afraid that the ship is going to crush them, but my boy Clay guy, I'm already forgetting his name, seemingly creates a giant wave of clay to stop everything from stopping the ship from exploding on impact. And Garp stands there and tells them, "Listen up, you snot-nosed pirates. If you so much as blink, you'll end up in a world of pain." What a letdown. Talk about frustrating. I've really lost my touch. Meaning, obviously, he thinks he's gotten weaker. And all the pirates are like, "What the fuck do you mean, bro? You're so strong." And we get a nice reunion between Garp and Kobe with some nice dialogue from our new Marines that we've met. So, Whip Girl, Clay Guy, and Big Guy in the back that I don't know if I introduced him last chapter. I don't even know if he got one. And Kobe is completely surprised that non-sword members came to save him. And the girl. What's her name? Hibari. Hibari gets frozen behind Kobe, which means only one thing. Kuzan's here. So we're going to get Kuzan versus Garp showdown, and immediately Kobe's asking him, "What are you doing? Please hurry and unfreeze Hibari." And the Blackbeard Pirates are hyped. They are so excited that it's a Akiji here, and he just straight up says it'd be a bad look if Kobe escapes while Teach is away. And through a flashback, we get to see that some of the Blackbeard Pirates picked a fight with Kuzan. He froze them, went into a bar. Blackbeard showed up, and they all just kind of hit it off. And this is also the first time in canon, or in the manga or anime, that we see that Kuzan does indeed have a fake leg. I think we were shown that in film Z, but other than that, we had never seen it in anything that would be considered more canon. So there we go. But we find out that Kuzan didn't necessarily take off any of Akiji He didn't necessarily take off any of Akainu's limbs, but he did hurt him pretty bad all over his body. And then we start talking about the man marked by flames, who apparently is on an all-black ship, and if anyone sails near it, they get swallowed up by giant whirlpools. He may very well have a fruit power. And Sirius suggests maybe the government has the poneglyphs to stop any pirate from claiming the One Piece. But Kuzan just straight up says, no, the poneglyphs, that's not something that I would, that is something that I would know, and it's not. But then he starts talking about that he didn't see any red stone while on Ohara, and then he starts talking about what happened on Ohara with a friend taking a stand against the government and the traumatized eyes of a little girl that forced me to take fate into my own hands. And then we get the question of, what do we do with him? Do we steal his power? And Kuzan threatens to freeze them all again. And Blackbeard asks if he wants to join the crew. And Kuzan obviously says no. Do you think a few drinks would be able to win me over? Blackbeard says, you've got pirates all wrong. We ain't just a merry band of chums bumming around together. We all profit from having our own agendas. That's what makes us pirates. You're free now, so what do you want to do? And I think single-handedly in that one section, Blackbeard highlights the difference between him and Luffy's versions of being a pirate. For Luffy, being a pirate is just about being free, being able to do whatever the hell you want, whenever the hell you want to do it. But for Blackbeard, it's being able to have your own agenda, I guess would be the right way to say it, which is a form of freedom, but Luffy's type of freedom comes from never having a plan, never having an agenda other than his end goal. But I won't even say that his end goal being his dream is an end goal. It is just a dream that he would like to do eventually. But then we get right back into the fight, and we see that Garp is taking a much more firm stance. He tells Kuzan, unfreeze Hibari, let us take Kobe and get your ass back in uniform. And Kuzan just straight up says, no, I'm good. I've decided to live life the way I want to do things. And then we get, I think, what is the final nail in the coffin for a certain theory that I'll get to. Your number one protege versus your new favorite. Can you kill one to save the other? You can't stop me like that. Oh, sorry. Bleep, bleep, beep, beep, beep. But your number one protege versus your new favorite. Can you kill one to save the other? Along with everything that he's saying in the panels before. You're correct as ever, Garp. I've always loved that about you, and that's why I'm not going to do any of those things. I've decided to live life on my own terms. And then he obviously puts Garp in an ice ball. But the theory that I'm thinking is there is a long-term theory that Kuzan was going to be part of Sword, and that he was doing an undercover mission for the Blackbeard Pirates, and he was going to report back to Garp with whatever he found. Which would fit because he uses an ice ball against Garp when he full well knows that's not going to work. So there's a little bit of credence to that, but just the fact that he is phrasing it this way, explaining it, even though Blackbeard isn't here, some of his crew members are, but he himself is not here, so he doesn't have to put on this big of a show, but he is. But I mean, obviously, a spectacle fight in the middle of your captain's or Commodore's island is going to be a draw, so you have to kind of put up a good fight. So the undercover angle, I still want to say is what is going on, but I can't be 100% certain. It feels like if that's the angle we're going to go for Kuzan, I'm okay with it, but it just feels... This chapter just kind of feels like it put a final nail in that, and it's not going to be what happens. But Garp uses an attack called Blue Hole and knocks Kuzan into the ground. And then we cut to Winter Island in the New World, which is where we left Blackbeard and Law. And this is something that I want to talk about, because when Blackbeard and Law started fighting, I said that there was a very, 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 very 50% chance they win. Like, Blackbeard has all these cheats, but Law just has a better fruit. And we see Law lost, but not as lost as you would think like Ace did, because Ace lost so bad that he was able to be transported to the Marines. Garp, Jesus, stop calling people Garp. Law and Beppo are both down, and the Polar Tang is currently sinking to the ocean floor, torn to pieces. And we see that the crewnet members are falling out of it, but they're still they're still regaining consciousness. At least we can assume they are. And Blackbeard says the owners of the 100 hearts you stole at Rocky Port are still living on Pirate Island. I bet they'll be thrilled if I bring them your heart. We'll have a toast. And then he continues, now what should we do with the Opie fruit? Sell it or use it? Don't suppose you'd fancy making me immortal. Which begs the question. How the fuck would Law even do it? Like, we've never had exposition of how Law is going to be able to do the eternal life thing. But you'd have to assume that he would know already. Like, it just comes naturally with the fruit. So could Law do it? I don't know. But that begs the question also, if they kill Law, what happens to the 100 hearts? Because they did not get redelivered to their pirates. I'm not going to lie, surprised the Marines that Law gave the hearts to didn't just immediately start stabbing them to kill the pirates. That's what I would have done. But if Blackbeard kills Law, do the hearts just bleed? Like, do they just become organs that have been ripped out of their bodies? The person that it's connected to will die? Unsure. But then we see that Beepo had received some, what I'm going to refer to as rumble balls from Chopper back on Wano. And he goes Sulong when there's no moon. And he fucking thwaps at Blackbeard and sends him and a few of his commanders back. He grabs Law and goes into the ocean. And Law tells him to go back for the crew because we can't abandon them. But Beepo says, we can't go back, but trust them, Captain. From the freezing ports of the north till now, we've always survived. None of us will let it end here. We overcame so much together. So don't you dare die, Captain. Please don't die. And they're swimming away. They're going underwater, meaning that Law is going to lose consciousness, so Beepo's carrying him the entire way. But we get the narrating box on the entire time. On this day, the Heart Pirates, led by Trafalgar Law, were soundly defeated. Compared to what happened with Kid and Shanks, where the Kid Pirates were destroyed, I'd consider this a net positive for Law. He's still better than Kid. But it is kind of a blow to me as a Law fan and an Ace fan that both of my favorites have now lost to Blackbeard. But it really puts in perspective just how everyone, in my opinion, was overhyping Blackbeard. Like, he's so strong, he could beat anyone in a 1v1 because of his tricks. But I was always of the opinion, like, if someone has just a good fruit, they can easily outbox him. They can easily just outmaneuver him, out-tactic him, use attacks that would just straight up kill him. That's what I thought with the fucking, I've heard the name of it, the Kroom attack that Law stabbed them with in the first bout of their fight. That's the same attack that put Big Mom on the ground. And Blackbeard has decreased durability, whether it be while he's using his black hole fruit, his dark fruit, or if it's just naturally, we don't know yet. When him and Ace fought, it was when he was trying to absorb the fire, he got burned very, very bad, I think. I could be misremembering that fight. But I thought that if an attack was able to put Big Mom on the defensive, it would just KO Blackbeard. And that Law should be able to land at least a few of those in a fight, but apparently not. So yeah, the Heart Pirates are defeated, not down, they're down but not out. I hope that something similar with the in the story A novel and manga drawn by Boichi, the Spade Pirates. After Ace loses to Whitebeard, they become a member, like they become ingrained into the Whitebeard Pirates. And I hope that's what happens with Law and Luffy, where maybe Luffy or Law, they meet up. Beepa brings Law to somewhere that Luffy will eventually meet him when he's been nursed back to health. And they come to an agreement that the Heart Pirates will become a subsect of Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So they're operating under the same banner, but they are separate crews. But yeah, that has been my breakdown and my opinions on this chapter. I like the fact that we are getting more and more feats for Garp, because he's gone this entire time without really being fleshed out for them. But now that we're getting him versus Kuzan, we are seeing just how much of a how much of a whack he packs. Not exactly what I want to say, but it works. But also the fact that Chopper was able to engineer some sort of rumble ball that makes a mink go Sulong when there's no moonlight out is fucking insane. That is such a useful trick. But yeah, that is my breakdown of 1081, and I will be back with 1082 like right about now. And in 1082, we start off immediately with the after effects of something that I was going to bring up in the other chapter, but I'll bring up now. And that is the Marine Bounty System. I kind of talked about it already, but it also adds an incentive for the people the Marines are supposed to be protecting to go after them, which we see in this chapter with Vice Admiral T-Bone having been murdered by a civilian. And this is someone who, on paper, is the same level as Garp was when he retired. Obviously, Garp is going to be stronger because he was easily Admiral level when that happened, and he just refused to go up because he didn't want to deal with the Celestial Dragons. But we get some exposition from Sengoku and Susaru that it's going to get really hard protecting people if they are not willing to be protected and they're trying to kill the Marines. So Sengoku says that if we don't neutralize the cross-guild group, this will kill the morale of every Marine and weaken the entire Navy. And then Nina tells them that Garp set off and said that he was off to save Kobe a few days ago, so he's probably teamed up with Sword. Pretty sure Kojaku's with him at least. And Sengoku and Suaru know he's gone to Hachinoso. And now we transition to one of the more interesting angles that we have seen so far, and that's Cross Guild, with Buggy giving the payment to the guy who killed T-Bone, even though the guy knows full well the Marines are going to kill him. They're going to either kill him, arrest him, or make him wish he was dead. But his family is going to get the money. He lives in a nation that is very poor. Sengoku, I think, said it earlier. No, it was Tusaru. Said that the kingdom of Pepe, the Pepe kingdom, has at least 1,000 people die every year from hunger. So it makes sense that someone would be willing to give their own life to provide for their family. Even if providing for your family is just buying a boat that they can sail away from the kingdom on, that still helps. Which you also have to think, if a captain usually runs a 1-star, a vice admiral should probably be like 3 stars, so 300 million. That's good. And Buggy starts celebrating with everyone, and apparently he had commissioned a ship for the Cross Guild, and Mihawk and Crocodile let him do it because they kind of figure, like, what the fuck is he going to do, mess up a ship? And the people that built the ship built it with Buggy being the main inspiration. He's on the masthead. And Mihawk and Crocodile show up, and they say, let's talk about this in the meeting room. And then we see that the meeting room was just a torture chamber where they deal with Buggy. And Crocodile comments that public awareness of Cross Guild is growing and the Navy is starting to understand the threat. If we need to have unrivaled influence to form our utopia and to become a strong military state. Before all that, we need overwhelming power. And to do that, we've got to find another way to gather. We have to find a way of gathering enormous amounts of wealth. And they need power. And they are already getting the fame. Those are things that Gold Roger had. He had wealth, fame, and power. All these beyond your wildest dreams. Before he was hung from the gallows. These were the final words he said. My fortune is yours for the taking, but you'll have to find it first. I left everything I owned in one piece. Ever since, pirates from all over the world have been setting sail for the Grand Line, searching for One Piece, the treasure that will make their dreams come true, including Mihawk and Crocodile. Buggy brings up the fact that they need to go after the One Piece. It will serve all of their goals. And then we find out that after Roger was executed, Shanks had his eyes set on Laugh Tale. We knew that when Buggy came down with a fever before they went to Laugh Tale. But Shanks says, I've changed my mind for now at least. I'm not ready to go for it, but I'm still going to be a pirate. And he tries to recruit Buggy, and they just don't do it. And we find out that after Roger was executed, it wasn't like Buggy harbored some ill will towards Shanks immediately. It was a let's stick together and reform the Roger Pirates, or become some something inspired by Roger. And when Shanks said that he's not going for the One Piece, which would just make sense, he was Roger's Kobe. He was Roger's Luffy. He was the one that Roger acted as a mentor towards. He was his protege. And for him not to go after the One Piece immediately and claim that as his, and cement his legacy as the secondary Pirate King, or the Pirate King's successor, really puts in perspective something must have happened to Shanks. Like, logic-wise, he must have found out why going for the One Piece was a stupid idea. Maybe it's for an honor thing, like Roger spent all this time to do it, and he found out how to do it his way. I'm not going to use a shortcut just because I was lucky. But Buggy thinks, don't you care about following Captain Roger's footsteps? And he gets, legitimately ticked with him. And we see back in present day that Buggy is kind of upset that Shanks is finally making his move, but he can't do anything about it. And for some reason, he feels like he's on even footing with Shanks due to the fact that they're both emperors. And Buggy just straight up says, and if that's the way it is, I might as well go ahead and say it. I want to be king of the pirates. Wealth, power, why stop there? We could have it all. Let's go for it. Let's go and claim the ultimate treasure. And then through some back and forth between Crocodile and Mihawk, we are reminded that the only reason that Buggy is alive is just because he serves the purpose of Crocodile and Mihawk not having to be the heads of Cross Guild. But Buggy just announces on the intercom, listen up. What dream drove you all to the sea? Every moment you cling to life might be your last, so why ignore that screaming urge inside you? If you give up because the reality of it was too daunting, now's your chance. It's time for us to set sail and reach out and grasp what we all desire most. It's time for us to finally go and claim the One Piece. So this adds another group going for the One Piece. Obviously, Mihawk and Crocodile are not on board with this. But it just puts in perspective, we are wrapping up. Every single faction in this story is going towards their end goal. Luffy and the Straw Hats just passed what is arguably been their largest obstacle on the trip, being Wano. It was a massive arc for most of the characters and combat and development for combat and power-ups and everything. It was massive. They all were pushed to their limits, both mentally and physically for some of them. Sanji being a mental and physical, Zoro being a very physical push. Luffy was also a very physical push. Nami was a mental push, and she also got pretty fucked up in that fight against Ulti. Chopper was put to the brink where he couldn't save everyone. He was stretched beyond his limits. Everyone had their moment in Wano, and now they have passed it. So they are in their last stretch. They're in the final saga of their trip. The Blackbeard pirates seem to be going for it now that whatever Blackbeard's plan is, it's culminating. The red-haired pirates are making their move, whatever that is. Every single group is making their push. And it only makes sense for Cross Guild, a group of pirates who were all inspired by Roger, to go for it. And it also serves Crocodile and Mihawk's purpose if they can ride the coattails of, say, Shanks or Blackbeard, and they can swoop in and grab the One Piece out from under their noses and leave, which is exactly what Crocodile and Mihawk are afraid of. They know they can't take on in the crew of an emperor. Sure, Shanks and Mihawk might be on equal footing as swordsmen, but it doesn't matter when you're going against an entire crew. We have seen from Marineford that it's not just Shanks that's the most terrifying member of his crew. Every single one of his commanders is insanely strong, too. Beckman was able to hold an Admiral at gunpoint, and Kizaru had no intention of fighting. He just gave up. He rolled over. So it makes sense that the crew, that Cross Guild is going for the One Piece, but it'll be very interesting, because Buggy's entire thing for this entire series has always been, let Person A do 99% of the work, and then you come into that last bit of work, swipe the reward, and leave. That's been his entire thing. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cross Guild angle of the story plays out. And for the final stretch of this chapter, we have 4 subordinates of captains in the Revolutionary Army, being Jiron, who is Karasu's subordinate, Gamble, who is Lindbergh's subordinate, Aharu, who is Bello Betty's subordinate, and Ashino, who is Morley's subordinate. I only can actually recognize like 2 of those. But Sabo has returned, and he brings news for what has happened. He has a ship full of Lelucian civilians that he saved when the island got blown up, and apparently he used the 3-beat code on their call to signal that he was okay. He wasn't even on Lelucia when it happened. Him and most of the people on the island were able to evac to the boats, which was what everyone's guess was. But we get to see that everyone is treating the Lelucians as members of the Revolutionary Army already. Bello Betty is saying, go home, or like rest up. We'll straighten out what happened afterwards. And Dragon and Eva have chalked up Kuma's retreat to Marijois as a backup programming that was a contingency. But the chapter ends with a very large proclamation. I'll tell you all about what really happened at the Holy Land of Marijois. And that right there is what I think the next 2 chapters are going to be fully about. With the knowledge that I have of them that I've gotten through vague spoilers on Twitter, these next 2 chapters are going to be about that. So I really look forward to seeing it. Like I went off on tangents this entire chapter. I really like the Cross Guild angle that we're going. I like the revolutionary angle that we're pushing towards. We are going to find out what happened at the Reverie. And I cannot wait, because I am sure whatever happened is fucking insane, and it will completely ruin what we have been expecting from this series for however long you've been a fan. 20 years at most. But yeah, so without further ado, I will transition it directly into me after I've read chapter 1083. Because again, these are also kind of like first impressions. So, yeah. Holy shit. This chapter right here, really fucking good. 1083, the truth about that day. We get a lot of exposition about what happened on Marijois. But before that, we get what amounts to a mission report for the revolutionaries for a little bit. We accomplished everything we set out to do. All 3 objectives were taken care of. We officially declared war by destroying the Celestial Dragon symbol. We rescued Kuma-san and freed as many slaves as possible. The destroying the symbol reminds me of Luffy and the Straw Hats, mainly Usopp, at Enies Lobby when they shot the Marine flag, declaring war on all the Marines. But he also says, finally we managed to find and destroy the Holy Land's food reserves. And the fallout was nothing to sneeze at, but we got the world's attention, and the Navy ended up sending in the big guns. Meanwhile, Dragon's side, we triggered uprising in 12 nations where we held strong influence, 8 of which were successful, counting the one in Lucia where the entire kingdom vanished. The headline censored everything, but the 7 others have all officially declared their intent to no longer pay the celestial tribute or comply with the exploitative exporting of their resources. On top of that, the Revolutionary Army is attacking government supply carriers all over the world to stop resources from reaching Marijois. They say the Holy Land's high-up location makes it an unpenetrable fortress, but we'll see how they like living under siege. They'll finally get a taste of what it's like to live in poverty and go hungry. That's a compilation of everything that Eva, Dragon, and Sabo have been saying. They might not be able to choke out all the resources out of Marijois, but they are going to run them dry eventually, and they have to be struggling. But as Dragon says, this is a new faction we're getting introduced to this late in the game. They're not the only foe who'll just take this lying down. Our real battle will start when they mobilize God's Knights. And Sabo's going to be their number 1 target, and Sabo just straight up says he does not like the nickname of Flame Emperor. And then we start pushing a little bit more into the politics of One Piece. Plenty of nations are ruled over by fascist dictators, like Doflamingo, and Crocodile, and Kaido. But there are just straight up royalty that does that too. It's not just people who take over kingdoms. But there's an exception. There are many exceptions. And one of those is Alabasta, and namely King Cobra. He did not serve as a tyrant. He served as a humble man, as we saw in Alabasta. And when Sabo apparently killed him, the rumors spread way faster than the nuances of Cobra being a good man. So they need to know why and what happened on Marijois and how King Cobra died. But before we move into the flashback that we get, I want to bring up something that everyone and their mother was talking about when this chapter dropped. One of the silhouettes for the God's Knights looks an awful lot like Shanks. And I don't think that's just coincidence. I think that is either Oda giving us a massive hint that Shanks is not the guy we thought he was, or alternatively, it's going to play on our assumption. It's going to be someone who has the same body size and shape and the way they're standing as Shanks, but it's not. Hell, for all we know, this is fucking Shanks' dad. We know next to nothing about Shanks in canon. We have Film Red, which gave us some, but films have always been a little questionable with their canonicity, so we can't really say that. We can't assume that everything that we found out in the movie is canon. There is still, I believe, a decent explanation or a decent excuse to be made for most theories regarding Shanks, including the Rox D. Shanks or Shanks D. Zebek theory. But yeah, I just want to talk about that because I know I would forget about it. But then we move into the flashback where King Cobra was assassinated. And immediately we get, over a month ago, on Marijois, not long after the Reverie, they blew up the food resource and they went after the holy symbol. Immediately. Those are the first 2 things they did. And all the world nobles are scrambling, trying to tell everyone what to do. And one world noble is about to kill his slave because he can't move him fast enough. And then a crow swings by and knocks the gun out of his hand. And that's when we see Karasu, the guy with the Plague Doctor mask, using an ability called Crowing Soot. And he tells the slave to escape to the east of the city. And then we find out that through his combat, with the ability to just take bullets, to disassemble himself into just waves of his shit, to use his seeming body to create these morphous attacks. He is a Logia with the suit fruit. So he's a Logia, obviously. That's massive. Everyone thought that he was going to be something different. I don't know how to explain it. I think Logia was an understandable assumption, but people thought he was going to be like the crow fruit, like a person made of birds, which would have been really cool. But then we see that Lindbergh, the little fucking gremlin guy, used the laser gun to free a bunch of slaves and told them to escape. And then we see that Karasu is just kind of taking on Fujitora, and it's not exactly a wipe either. Morley is taking on Ryokyugu, and Ryokyugu, the guy who one of the very few character traits we know about him, is he is deathly loyal to the Marines and the world government. He straight up thinks It's impossible to fight here because of the world nobles. If we hurt anybody, we're going to get fucking killed. And they need to get out of the fucking way. And this was apparently part of the revolutionaries' plans. Even if they send in two of the admirals, they're not going to be able to fight at full strength. They have to hold back. And we get to see that CP0 was commenting on how effective the Revolutionary Army is fighting. But the admirals are also putting up a pretty good fight. And that's when I remembered that CP0 was on Marijois, not going to lie. I kind of forgot. And we see that Sabo has found Kuma, and Charlos is going after... I'm forgetting her name. Shirahoshi, sorry. So with all this chaos, he plans on going after a princess, which is a dirty, dirty move, but it's Charlos, so we kind of expect it. And, again, I also forgot Bonnie was on Marriage Raw when all this was happening. But we also see that Vivi would rather have Vice Admiral Garp's help than, Rob Lucci's, and she just straight up says he didn't protect Shirahoshi, and that creep, in reference to Charlos, is definitely going to target her again. And then we move into the final section of this chapter, which really makes this chapter move really fast. Which is King Cobra showing up to speak to the 5 elders. And he's not allowed to have either Pell or Chaco in with him. And my guess for what is going to happen in the next chapter, because that's just the end. He just tells Shaka and Pell to go find Vivi and make sure she's not in trouble. My guess is he has a meeting with the world nobles where maybe he wants to relinquish his title. Maybe he just wants to talk to them about something else. And the conversation takes a really bad turn, and one of them or one of their subordinates kills him. That's my guess. But also, something that I want to talk about way earlier in the chapter, when Sabo was talking about the Alabasta with the dragon, and how Dragon was saying it's such a, compared to other nations, King Cobra is a league of his own as a ruler. This one country of Alabasta is a major aspect, in my opinion at least, of Ace, Luffy, and Sabo's relationship, because we first met Ace on Alabasta, and we got teased of him going into Alabasta, but he shows up on the island, and that's the first time that, like, we see him. He's a part of that. And, like, don't get me wrong, we also see him when, with other stuff. Like I said, Drum Island, we got hints of him. But Alabasta is a very core part of Luffy, and Luffy's relationship. That's where we got to see the most of him, really. Other than maybe Marineford. And now, Sabo is being tied to Alabasta through King Cobra. This one nation has had a massive impact on our brothers. Even if you don't think that Ace did a lot in Alabasta, Alabasta was the place where he trusted Luffy's crew to protect him. He was able to not relinquish, but hand over that guardian role to the people that Luffy trusted. And that's massive for a older brother like Ace to do that for a younger brother. That's a big load off of Ace's shoulders, you would think. But he still is going to have that worry, like we saw in Marineford, where he didn't want Luffy to save him because that would mean he might die. But yeah, that's just me rambling about Ace and Luffy and Sabo, because I like Ace more than I should probably admit at this point. I'm starting to like Sabo a little bit more. I wasn't the biggest fan of him in Dressrosa. I really wasn't the biggest fan of him, like, period, until, like, the very end of Dressrosa, where he just kind of, like, he doesn't linger with Luffy. He just straight up says, like, I have my own things I have to do. I gotta go, but I will be there if you need me. And just that, like, mini Ace, because Ace said pretty much the same thing. If you need me, I'll be there. Just, like, you'll have to give me time to get there. And this arc, or I should say the mini arc of our flashback and everything that happened at the Reverie, is really making me like Sabo a lot more. He's not gonna overtake Ace, but there's certainly potential. But that should be it for this chapter. And yeah, 1083 was not underwhelming. There was a lot to it, but a lot of it was flashbacks and stuff that I can easily gloss over. Because, again, these videos aren't supposed to be a replacement for reading the chapters themselves. They are a supplementary piece where it's like sitting down with a friend and hearing their opinion on the chapter. That's what I want these videos to be. It's just sitting down with a friend and reviewing the chapter with them. But yeah, give me like 5 minutes maybe to read the chapter, get my thoughts in order, and I'll be back. Okay, guys. Okay. Feels like every time I come back to record audio, I have this to say. This chapter was fucking good. This chapter was better than the last one. Blah 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 blah. But holy shit, the amount of revelations that we get from this chapter is massive. And it's not just massive in a simple, like, world-shattering sense. It's more than that. It's more like the foundations of the One Piece world, as we all know, were the 20 nations. Cobra goes into it with the 5 elders. So I'm just going to basically summarize that part of the chapter as well. 20 nations formed together and created the world government as we know it. They all put weapons in front of the throne to ensure that no single person would sit in front of it or sit on it. But all the celestial dragons were offered refuge on Merizwa as the Holy Land, as the home of the founders, pretty much. Except the Nefertari line, led by Lili, refused, and she went home. Or she was apparently supposed to go home, meaning there were 19 weapons in front of the throne as opposed to the 20 that Lili would have made. But she never apparently made it home. And nobody knows why. The elders are playing stupid, and Cobra just doesn't know, and he's curious. But before we get fully into that, Sabo beats up a bunch of guards, meets Bonnie. They get on the same page. He saves her. Gives the keys to Karasu's crow, and they escape the castle, and he shows Bonnie the way forward towards Egghead. Then we have everything that I already talked about with the empty throne, 20 weapons, but since Lili never cemented herself here, she never put a weapon in front of it, meaning it was 19. And he asks about D. And he says, the truth is, a short letter penned by the queen has been passed down from one generation to the next. And that's all we get. And then we cut to Shirahoshi and the outside of that room, pretty much. And surprise, surprise, Charlos is having mind-controlled Kuma chain her up. And I just don't like the insinuation of what he was going to do and everything. And what it was going to look like. So I don't want to describe it. But everyone just runs away because they know if anyone fights, they're going to be witnesses to it, and that means they might be accountable. And one of Shirahoshi's brothers shows up, or all 3 of them show up, actually. And Kuma launches a blast, but they all dodge it, and they are just about to attack. But Meow's guard, the world noble we met way back last time we were on this island, tells Sai and Leo that they can attack and it doesn't matter. But Fukaboshi, the brother, has to show restraint because he has a kingdom he has to worry about. If he attacks, that's the end of his nation. If they attack, it's just a bodyguard of one of the world nobles attacking another bodyguard. Meow's guard really knows his shit. But Leo and Sai launch joint attacks, and they fucking destroy this man. Everyone thinks that Charlos is dead. And Kuma goes for a blast, but the captain, Morley, shows up and bear hugs him. And this really shows just how out of touch this section of the world is. There were explosions and fighting happening on Merizwa with where everyone was. But they don't even know that the revolutionaries are there yet. Because you have the line, what's going on? How did Giant get here? An intruder, what's going on? What's the captain of the revolutionary armies doing here? All this shit. It's what really just shows how out of touch the celestial dragons are. And before we move into the last section of the chapter, which is what everyone is talking about, I want to go a little bit more in depth about the Cobra stuff, like reading exactly what it says and maybe theorizing with you guys. So, beginning of what we see is the Celestial or the 5 elders welcome Cobra to the room and asks why he wanted to speak to them. He says, "Perhaps I should start from the beginning. As you are aware, the organization known as the World Government was founded 800 years ago. When 20 different monarchs came together, their families all promptly moved to Marijois to live as one clan, referred to as the Celestial Dragons, the ones responsible for the creation of the world, and as such they have ruled over their creation ever since. Internally, the 20 were considered equal, and to ensure that no individual dictator would rise up among them, they installed the empty throne. Each of them placed a weapon around the throne to symbolize their vow to never try to sit upon it." And this reminds me of something that I didn't bring up. One of the guards, while Sabo and Jewelry Bonnie were escaping, brings up the empty or like the void room or something along the lines. I'll try to find it. The legendary Phantom Room. And he continues to say that at the same time, new royal families were handpicked to rule the nations. That the founders could no longer preside over. Their families are still in power to this day. To ensure the smooth transition, all references mentioning the previous dynasty's reign were removed from each of the founders' respective home countries, with the sole exception of Alabasta. The monarch at the time was Queen Lili of House Nefertari. While her name was immortalized as one of the founding 20, she did not stay to become a celestial dragon. Instead, she was to return to Alabasta to continue her reign, which is why the Nefertari family has continued to act as sovereigns. That also means that only 19 weapons were ever placed around the empty throne. And he says that he scoured all my kingdom's ancient texts, but as far as I can tell, all known accounts chronicling the period after the Void Century have one thing in common. Her name isn't mentioned once. It appears Queen Lili never made it home to Alabasta, and the burden of ruling the country fell to her younger brother. Do you have any record of what might have happened to her? And one of the world nobles, or 5 elders, says, "To be blunt, 800 years ago was a very long time ago. It is true that the 20 families of the Nefertari line, the 20 families, the Nefertari line did not move here. However, it was believed that the queen returned back to her country after that decision. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that the details about her journey and her motives and journey are lost to the annals of history. We simply do not know. Forgive my inability to speak." And then he asks about the Will of D, with the short letter being penned by the queen. And when they started talking about the Nefertari line and 800 years ago is a very long time, we get a shot of Emu. And Emu is in the big, like, nature-y room. I believe this is where we also saw Emu with Luffy's bounty poster a while back. And then we cut to the Shirahoshi stuff that I already went over, and then we cut to the end of the chapter that I haven't gone over. And Emu walks into the room, and he's heading straight for that throne. And the 5 elders straight up says, "Emu, King Cobra is still present. What are you doing?" And all Emu says is Lili, the leader of Alabasta from way back when, the one that Cobra was talking about this entire time. And with no hesitation, as the translation on the little teaser text says, no hesitation to sit on the throne. So, what I believe is going on, I'm going to say, my guess, is I think what the majority of the theory is that Lili is Emu. She never returned home, so she planted the sword. So she never got to plant her sword, meaning that she did not swear that she wouldn't sit in that throne. Or maybe the House of Nefertari is now split in 2. You have the ones that were on Marijois and the ones that went back to Alabasta. So you have the brothers line and the sisters line. The sisters line has continued to be the shadow watchers of the world, and they've been acting as royal or celestial dragons the entire time, but they've never been dubbed as such, maybe. While the Alabastians are what Cobra comes from, and Vivi does. Sorry, I have a hair on my microphone. That's what my guess is, at least. Also, small thing that TCB included was the notes on Lili versus Lili. After some deliberation, we decided to go with Lili as the spelling to better fit with the Vivi and Titi, as the names are Vivititili. Lili is a common alternative spelling for Lily in the real world, especially in countries such as France. Like Vivi, the name references a flower. However, the I variation has more potential references. For instance, in Hebrew, it means oath to God. It should be noted that the Japanese includes a kanji, which suggests a long I sound. It would not be surprising if Viz goes with Lily, as there is no correct version currently, but we will update later on if more evidence emerges. So the spelling is kind of irrelevant. It's Lily. It's pronounced Lily, not Lili. So that's my theory on that. That's my theory on Emu. And the throne is very oversized when Emu sits in it. We've seen that everything about the throne kind of screams giant. From the giant straw hat that Emu was interested in a while back to the throne. I'm wondering if the person that it was meant for, the Phantom Room, which I'm going to assume is the room the 5 elders are in this chapter, and the 20 swords and the empty throne, if it was all meant to be for a giant. And as we've seen time and time again, Joy Boy, the old Joy Boy, was a giant. So maybe, big stretch here, right? Joy Boy was meant to rule everything. Maybe there was a 21st dynasty, or maybe there was one man to collect or to unify all the nations, and that throne was meant for him, but then he disappeared. I don't know. I'm forgetting a lot of the small nuances of timeline stuff. I don't even know if Joy Boy was around at that time. I think it was during the Void Century though. But the exposition about the families before the Void Century being erased from history really puts in perspective how much fucking planning has gone into this. They have been scrubbing records pretty much of anything that they don't want for hundreds of years. And the fact that they have the power to do it is kind of huge. They can just do it. Any scrap of information, gone like that. But that's it for this video, or at least this section of audio. I think it's going to be the end of the video. This is potentially my favorite new way of doing the videos. The split up audio. Because to you guys, it's just one long fluid recording with jumps in between. But to me, I get to sit down, read a chapter, go over it, think about it for a little bit. But yeah. Yeah, I like this chapter. I like all the different angles we're getting in all the chapters, because we got Cross Guild, what happened on Winter's Island, the Revolutionaries, Hachinoso, and Emu are kind of the major ones. I'm sure we got a few more in there. The exposition by the Marines about Cross Guild. That's also massive. We got a lot of information and big, I'm sure if you're fans of the characters that they happened with, you love the moments, Buggy saying that he wants to become king of the pirates and all that stuff. I'm sure people are over the moon for these moments. But as for me, I like the fact that we got to see Law. It sucks that he lost, but he's still alive. He still has his fruit, and I hope that we see him. Maybe not soon. I think we've had a lot of Law for the past while, ever since, obviously, Punk Hazard. But he just fits so well into our main group that it would be kind of a shame if he was gone. I have no doubt that Kid is probably going to come back soon, eventually as well. Maybe the Supernovas are going to, because we've gotten teases that the Supernovas are going to play a massive part. The only ones that have yet to play a massive part are Arouge and Bonnie. And Bonnie is fulfilling her role on Egghead now, and Arouge could be the man marked by Flame. So maybe we'll get Kid, Law, and all of the surviving Supernovas to join up at the end of the series and fight against the world government, the 5 elders. Because in my opinion, we have combat, quote-unquote, combat-capable supernovas, being Luffy, Zoro, Kid, Killer, and Law. And those have been our 5 main supernovas for the entire story. And I'm wondering, since there are 5 elders, I doubt it. But the 5 elders doesn't feel like something that the Straw Hats would fight. The Straw Hats feel like they would be fighting the gods' army, or whatever they're called, the gods' knights, I think. So I don't think that the Straw Hats are gonna be the ones fighting the 5 elders. It just doesn't feel right. Maybe if you throw Shanks in the mix, and you have Shanks fighting one of them, and then Luffy takes on Emu. It could also just be a collaborative effort. Like, they all have to fight the 5 elders. They deal with the 5 elders, but Emu is there. We have no idea what these guys are capable of. Emu clapped an entire nation in, like, one moment. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes for our crew and our cast of characters, not just the Straw Hats. The potential is here for a amazing finale to One Piece. With all the pieces in place, all the characters on the board, this could be amazing. And it probably will be. Oda has no shortage of amazing writing, but he also has a fairly decently sized list of arcs with bad writing. So I just hope it falls into the Marineford and Wano sections of legend for One Piece, and it doesn't get put down in history with Long Ring, Long Land, and Fishman Island. So yeah. Until next time, I am going to go downstairs, use the restroom, and probably come back and record the chainsaw video next. But until next time, stay safe, have fun, and read more manga. Okay, guys. Bye.